Early in the morning, there was the patter of light rain and the tree-lined mountains were covered by fog. It was hazy and like a wonderland. A black car was driving on a curved mountain road. The driver in the front was holding the steering wheel cautiously. The man sitting in the back was wearing a gray suit. His clean white shirt was ironed without a trace of wrinkles and his slender fingers were flipping through a document. The man had handsome features and an indifferent expression. He was just sitting there silently, yet he gave off a strange sense of oppression. The space in the car became extremely quiet due to his presence. The driver didn't even dare to do anything to break the atmosphere and disturb him. There was a girl around 20 years old sitting next to the man. She had a youthful face and was wearing a pink dress with her hair in a bun. She was holding her phone to seriously read a novel. After reading for a moment, she suddenly glanced at the man next to her and looked him up and down. The man sensed her gaze and asked lightly, "What is it?" The girl's eyes curved and she smiled brightly. "Brother, the main character of this novel has the same name as you. He is also called Pei Xiaozi." Pei Xiaozi wondered casually, "What novel?" "Accidental Mark. It is an abo novel." "Abo novel?" Pei Xiaozi wasn't interested in online novels. He only read the scripts that the company's movie and television department submitted to him after screening. He naturally didn't know what abo was and thought it was a blood type. Cough. Pei Shuiqing was embarrassed to explain to her brother in detail and just spoke briefly. "It is a setting from abroad. In an abo world, people are divided into 3 categories: alpha, beta and omega. Among them, alphas and omegas have corresponding pheromones. It can be understood as a type of hormone that controls human instincts. Pei Xiaozi, who has the same name as you, is an alpha and he is also the boss of an entertainment company." Pei Xiaozi listened and was mystified. Pei Shuiqing paused before whispering, "However, the Pei Xiaozi in the book is too much of a scumbag. After the main character Cheng Xia lost control of his pheromones, this scumbag tormented Cheng Xia and almost killed him. This person has the same name as you but his personality is completely different." "Well, having the same name isn't strange. My name isn't special." Pei Xiaozi wasn't interested in this topic and continued to look through the documents. He was usually very busy at work. This time, he came home because today was his 30th birthday and his mother was going to hold a birthday party for him. The document in his hand was a signing contract for the next movie and television department project. The legal department had repeatedly checked it before submitting it to him for a final review. It was still an hour's drive from the hotel, so he brought this contract to read it in the car. 10 minutes later, Pei Xiaozi finished reading the contract and put it in his briefcase. The birthday party started at 8 o'clock in the evening. At his mother's gesture, Pei Xiaozi picked up the microphone and spoke a few words. Then he personally cut the birthday cake. There was enthusiastic applause. In the buffet time, people kept coming up to toast him. "Happy birthday, President Xiao. Hope everything goes well." "Happy birthday, President Pei." Pei Xiaozi drank one glass of red wine after another and gradually felt dizzy. He didn't like such noisy occasions, but he couldn't refuse his mother. After all, today's lively celebration was for his birthday. Once the birthday party was about to end, Pei Xiaozi called his assistant and instructed in a deep voice, "Let the driver take my mother and Xiao Qing back later. You take me to the villa in the western suburbs. I will rest there for 2 days." The assistant immediately responded, "Okay, I'll come straight away." Not long after, the assistant arrived at the hotel to pick him up. Pei Xiaozi sat in the back and pressed a hand against his temple. His alcohol tolerance wasn't bad, but he really drank too much today. There was a sudden pain from his temples and his head was buzzing like it was going to explode. The assistant glanced at him in the rearview mirror and found that his face was very ugly. The assistant couldn't help caring. "President Pei, do you have a headache again? Do you want to take some painkillers?" Pei Xiaozi's voice was hoarse. "No, you concentrate on driving. I'll get some sleep first." Then he closed the curtains in the back seat area, turned off the lights in the car and leaned against the seat with closed eyes. The assistant had to drive quietly. It had been raining all day and the entire city was shrouded in thick fog. After dark, the visibility was less than 30 meters. Therefore, the assistant was very careful when driving and the speed was slowed down as much as possible. It took 2 hours for the car to arrive at the villa in the western suburbs. The assistant helped the terrible-looking Pei Xiaozi to the bedroom and thoughtfully poured a glass of water for him. Pei Xiaozi had a terrible headache, so he simply took a few sleeping pills from his bedside table, popped them in his mouth and fell asleep. Some time later, strange mechanical sounds were heard in Pei Xiaozi's head. "Welcome to the book Transmigration system. System 1022 will serve you wholeheartedly. The player's account has been activated. The latest novel read is..." Sorry, no novels have been read by this player in the last 3 months. Memory retrieval. The most recent novel in your memory is Accidental Mark by the author Butterfly Fly Fly. The world of the novel is loading. Associated character Pei Xiaozi binding completed. Pei Xiaozi sat up in bed. He just remembered that he drank a lot of wine at his birthday party and had a terrible headache. After returning to the villa, he couldn't fall asleep because of his headache. He took a few sleeping pills. This was a habit he had developed over the years when he couldn't sleep. Now he woke up inexplicably, and what was this voice in his head? Pei Xiaozi was feeling puzzled when a warm body suddenly pressed tightly next to him. The other person's slender hand gently groped and held his waist. The skin of the two people were in close contact, and the other person obviously wasn't wearing clothes. Neither was he. Pei Xiaozi immediately turned on the lights and his sharp eyes stared to the side. There was a young man lying on the bed with a quilt covering his body, revealing only his face and a faintly visible collarbone. The young man's skin was white. His eyebrows deliberate, and the warm light cast on his face made him look like a young student. Even so, his facial features were very handsome. His appearance could be ranked at the top even in the entertainment circle with countless handsome men. It was just that at this time, the young man was red-faced and moving around on the bed restlessly. Pei Xiaozi remembered his sister asking about the unspoken rules in the entertainment industry. Did someone really climb into his bed, wanting to rely on him for resources? Pei Xiaozi quickly pressed down the young man's hand that was touching everywhere and asked calmly, "Who sent you here?" His voice was low and cold. The temperature in the bedroom seemed to drop several degrees due to his voice. The young man raised his head, and once he saw the identity of the other person, he immediately curled up under the covers, his lips trembling slightly and his breathing disturbed. President Pei. My name is Cheng Xia. It seems my omega pheromone is out of control. Cheng Xia? Omega pheromone? Why did these words sound familiar?
Pei Xiaozi woke up to a mechanical voice in his mind. Welcome player Pei Xiaozi to the world of the Accidental Mark novel. The goal of the book Transmigration system, raise the protagonist of the novel and let the protagonist's good impression of you reach 100 points. The protagonist Cheng Xia is online. He is in his susceptible period and won't resist anything you do to him. Pei Xiaozi remembered his sister talking about a novel called Accidental Mark, where a character with his name was also the president of an entertainment company. He realized he had entered this book, an ABO novel, where he, an alpha, was destined to interact with the Omega protagonist, Cheng Xia. Pei Xiaozi quickly spoke in his mind. I'm very busy and don't have time to play this boring game. Choose another player. I want to go back. The system replied, I'm sorry, the system is bound to the player, and you can't return unless you complete the mission. Pei Xiaozi sighed, deciding to familiarize himself with the plot. A floating frame with a book button appeared, and he quickly skimmed through the story. Accidental Mark was a tragic ABO abuse novel. Pei Xiaozi was a rich second-generation alpha and the president of Tianxian Entertainment. He secretly loved an Omega, Lin Xianshu, but was involved with another Omega, Cheng Xia, after a company event. Cheng Xia's agent had drugged his drink, leading him to Pei Xiaozi's bed. Under the influence of pheromones, Pei Xiaozi marked Cheng Xia without care, treating him roughly. Pei Xiaozi didn't care for Cheng Xia but kept him around as a pet. Over time, Cheng Xia fell in love with Pei Xiaozi, abandoning his dreams of becoming an actor. After 3 years, Lin Xianshu returned, and Pei Xiaozi dropped Cheng Xia to pursue his first love, imprisoning Cheng Xia when he tried to leave. Cheng Xia was mentally and physically broken during his imprisonment, and when he escaped, Lin Xianshu framed him with indecent photos. His parents died from grief, and Cheng Xia, devastated, left the country. He later returned as a successful star, exacted revenge on Lin Xianshu and Pei Xiaozi, and ultimately killed Pei Xiaozi in a carefully staged self-defense scenario. Pei Xiaozi closed the book, feeling disdain for the novel's melodramatic plot. The original Pei Xiaozi was a cruel and foolish man, whose actions led to tragic outcomes for Cheng Xia. The mechanical voice returned, urging him toward the next plot task, marking Cheng Xia. Cheng Xia, trembling with pheromones out of control, reached for Pei Xiaozi. I'm so uncomfortable, please, help me. Pei Xiaozi hesitated. He had transmigrated to the beginning of the novel, with Cheng Xia still innocent in front of him. To mark or not to mark? This was a terrible choice. According to the novel's setting, the influence of an Omega's pheromones on an alpha was difficult to resist. Pei Xiaozi naturally marked Cheng Xia so as to develop the subsequent dog blood plots of imprisonment, heart abuse, and revenge. However, the current owner of the body wasn't Pei Xiaozi in the original novel. It was Pei Xiaozi who transmigrated into the novel. Mark? It should mean possessing the other person, but the original book didn't have a detailed description of how to do it. Pei Xiaozi was still in the dark about the ABO setting. He didn't understand why Omega men and women could have children in this world, let alone why the pheromones made a person go out of control. The help of the Omega pheromones made Pei Xiaozi feel for the first time what it was like to have his self-control on the verge of collapsing. There was an impulse in his mind urging him to take over Chang Xia as soon as possible, but he suppressed this instinct with reason. He thought of the plot in the original novel where Chang Xia stabbed Pei Xiaozi to death. The young man in front of him seemed easy to bully, but when it came to love and hate, he was extremely strong. In the end, he killed all the people who injured him and harmed him. Could such a protagonist be casually marked? Besides, Pei Xiaozi hated the feeling of losing control of his body. The so-called physiological response caused by the influence of pheromones only made him feel extremely disgusted. He didn't like his fate being in someone else's hands, and he didn't like his body being at the mercy of pheromones. The novel plot or original setting wasn't important in his eyes. Now that he had come to this world, he should control the next plot. System 1022, Chang Xia's pheromones data is about to reach the peak. Please mark Chang Xia as soon as possible. If you don't mark him, then Chang Xia won't be satisfied and will hurt himself crazily. System 1022, it is recommended that you be gentle with him. It will be much easier later. Not marking would make him hurt himself crazily? Pei Xiaozi simply got up and opened the quilt. Chang Xia's body was completely revealed before his eyes. The young man didn't have any trace of fat on his body. His legs were straight and long, and his body was good enough to be a model. His skin was covered with a layer of redness and his wet eyes were blurry. This was truly the protagonist of a novel. He had a good appearance and good figure. His figure that lay in bed was really attractive. Due to his pheromones going out of control and not being satisfied, Chang Xia's hands were scratching everywhere and making a lot of red marks on his body. Pei Xiaozi glanced at him before turning around to find 2 ties from the closet drawer. Then he quietly tied Chang Xia's hands to the head of the bed. System 1022, playing bondage for the first time? Isn't this too exciting? Pei Xiaozi ignored the noisy mechanical voice and headed to the bathroom, turning on the cold water. The cold water of the shower fell down and the door of the bathroom cut off the smell of Chang Xia's pheromones. The cold water gradually extinguished his body's heat and the man's deep eyes finally returned to its usual indifference. System. Tying up the cute Omega in the susceptible period and taking a cold shower by himself? This player. No. You are doing it wrong. Pei Xiaozi quickly took a shower before picking up his mobile phone. He found a number in the contacts and called it. The doctor, who was woken up at 2 o'clock in the morning, was in a daze. He yawned and complained, "President Pei, you better have a reason I can accept for making me wake up in the middle of the night." The doctor's name was Qinyu and he was a small, nagging beta male. In the novel, Chang Xia was later imprisoned, tortured, seriously injured, and hospitalized. He escaped from the hospital with the help of Dr. Qinyu and was also the one to notify Chang Xia when his father was taken to the hospital due to a heart attack. Qinyu might be Pei Xiaozi's good friend, but he couldn't understand Pei Xiaozi's abuse of Chang Xia. He felt sorry for Chang Xia and secretly helped out a lot.